everybody. Assalamu alaikum. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button and the notify button so you know when you're getting new episodes. And we just want to grow this project. I thank you in advance. Without further ado, let's get it rolling. The Shout Out Show. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Mars, host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. Hope you're having a tremendous Thursday, because normally when you have a tremendous Thursday, you're going to have an out-of-sight weekend. You know what I'm saying? But more importantly, folks, I'm happy that we're going to have a Throwback Thursday I've been wanting to have for quite a long time. It seems like there's so much chaos and just weird feelings, weird vibes around us. I didn't want to do politics today. And I know some of you go, no, Preach, talk about it. I don't want to do politics today. I've talked about it all week long. And I found that if the more and more you talk about it, sadly, you can bring your own spirit down. So today I'm not going to do that. But let me do my housekeeping first. If this is the first time you come on a Shout Out Show, and I have to say this because I realize there are some people that come on the show, they don't necessarily go in the comment box, but they check into the show. They leave comments. So for those people, I may have acknowledged you. I didn't know you were there. But I'm going to tell anybody that comes to the Shout Out Show for the first time, your first time is going to be like your last time, meaning that we're going to treat you correctly, meaning we're going to try and give you some ideas and some concepts and some show and fun and that family vibe that lets you know that, hey, listen, we're all rocking together the same way. That's number one. But on the way in, if it's your first time, please, particularly on YouTube, click that subscribe button. Click that like button if you like the show. If we've earned a like from you, then go ahead and click it. Because I think we're at 124 subscribers. And you know, we're looking at big numbers. We're trying to get to 125 subscribers. That's my goal. We're trying to get to 125 subscribers. 124 to 125. And I'd like to say, you got to have simple goals. Now, this is a shout out to all my other folks. I'm going to give some love right here in the comment section. Sister Reed, can you text me what that menu is going to be tomorrow? Now, don't play around. I got to get my platter together. So make sure you text me what the menu is tomorrow so I know how much money to have. I don't want to come up short. I might be ordering a few things. You know, I'm in a situation. Shout out to Sister Satana Walaikum Assalam Fatullah Barakata, our consultant producer, without whom this thing does not happen. She was there at the beginning, talking this thing through, and like I said, you got to talk it. You got to talk it into existence. That's what we did with the Shout Out Show. That was some 175 shows ago, brothers and sisters. So just so you know, we're 25 shows away from 200 shows. And many of you have been on that ride with us. And as opposed to when we did the 100 show scenario, I want to do a couple of things differently. I'm just going to try and plan it. So the idea is to have some of our regular people from the Shout Out Show. You're going to be guests on the 200th episode. Inshallah. Just need to figure out what that looks like technically. Also, on this Sunday, we want to have a Sunday Spotlight person. Due to the schedule, we're going to move it to Tuesday. Brother Hussam Ayus, who is the executive director for CARE LA, is going to come on the show on Tuesday at our regular scheduled time at 5 p.m. It's going to come on a Tuesday for about a half hour, 40 minutes. So we're moving that Saturday Spotlight. We're going to move it to when? Tuesday. And so we'll make sure we have information that goes out accordingly. All right. So my topic today, because I realize right now with everything that's going on that, you know, we're not talking about people and things that inspire us. Let me say, people and things who inspire us, because I think there's a particularly with this election cycle, there's this whole heavy cloud of people who, for lack of a better word, I might be wrong, a bevy of people who just don't want to see other people do well, who just don't want to see other people survive, be happy, because there's tied up in this maliciousness and this sadness and this greed and I mean it's just this weird power grab. So I'm moving away from that. I want to talk to you, brothers and sisters, about people who inspire you. Now, it doesn't have to be, your mom, your dad, they inspire you. That's cool. I know your mom and dad inspire you, inshallah. But I also say, what are some of the people who just maybe they poke their head in your life for maybe a year or two and really change your thinking? I have some of those stories. I'm going to tell one story. I don't even know the little girl's name, but I was at a fundraiser several years ago, and I'm just going to tell you guys, this fundraiser, this fundraiser wasn't going well. Most of the people who showed up with the people actually needed the help. So not a lot of money came through. Let's just say that. But the people who came, they volunteered, and so it was basically uncomfortable as you watch the fundraiser go up and struggle. It was not looking good. And the same fundraiser was like, who give me? Nobody was moving, and it became uncomfortable, because you knew the people needed assistance, but no money was coming. This little bit of inspiration, it was amazing because it couldn't happen any better. Nobody knew per se what was going on in terms of how we were going to handle it. So people's hearts were down. That's what I'm saying. In the fundraiser, people's hearts were down, and they put the money on this table. That's how bad it was. People were putting money on the table, not the baskets. Like, here's what I have. No pledges, no credit cards. That's what we're talking about. In the midst of this down feeling of nobody giving money, this little girl, she couldn't have been more than 3, had a lollipop as big as a wagon wheel and was licking a lollipop. And she looked around and realized that nobody was giving any money. And the little girl walked up where the money was, and she offered her lollipop and put it right there on the thing. And right then and there, I said, that is inspirational. Now, the fundraiser did just get a little bit better, but at that point in time, we knew it wasn't going to be a thing when you made a whole lot of money. However, that lollipop, the gesture of a young girl she has no idea what a fundraiser is. She might not even have had an idea of the people who were struggling and we were trying to serve. But she offered a lollipop because somebody said give. And that right there was one of the most inspirational moments I've ever been a part of, brothers and sisters. I mean, it changed me. I think it changed everybody in the room because at that point in time, we become really, really focused, myopic on this whole idea of just being grateful for the little things that we had. That this little girl at 3 or 4 years old, what does she have? What does she have? She doesn't have an apartment. She doesn't have real estate. She doesn't have fine cars. She doesn't have people working for her. She doesn't have a retirement fund. All she had was that little lollipop, was a big lollipop. And she licked it and put it down. Now, ironically, when they got the money back, she did come back and get that lollipop. Hey, wash that joint off, baby, and you have a lollipop. Because you can't take the lollipop to the bank, but God bless her. So who are some of the people that inspire you guys? This is the Ike all the way from Indonesia. Walaikum assalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for joining the show. Who are the people that inspire you? Satana, who are the people that inspire? I think we have this. I'm doing the Al Jarreau thing. Let me tell y'all about the Al Jarreau thing, because I do this and I am guilty of it. Years ago, I went to go see Al Jarreau at a concert in Milwaukee. He is from Milwaukee. He is a Milwaukee icon, a jazz icon, a Milwaukee icon. And may Allah be pleased with him. He returned to Allah several years ago. But he was such a people person that when he would go and do shows in Milwaukee, it was the worst show. It was the worst show ever. You hear what I'm saying? The worst show ever. And it's not because Al Jarreau can't sing. He was an incredible singer. The band was amazing. It's because he was such a homebody and loved Milwaukee so much, everybody would come to the show in Milwaukee. Like it was a family thing. Everybody Al Jarreau knew from the cradle to 70-some years old, they would come to the show. And he knew them all. And people, sort of like the Shout Out show, would pop in. They'd be like, hey, Al, and he would stop and you knew everything about everybody. Like, hey, Joey, how you doing, man? How your mom doing, man? I heard your brother was sick. Y'all doing well? Hold on a minute, man. Yeah. And then they'd stop and they'd go back and sing. And he'd be like, Frida, I ain't seen you in so long. Hold on a minute, man. Yeah, Frida, what's going on, girl? Girl, yeah, I still remember when you got married. You still married? Well, tell your husband he should have come to the show. Then he go back and he keep going back and forth. I am like that. I don't want you guys to think that I can't keep a train of thought. But when I see people in the box, I give them shout outs. That's fair. I'm going to give you someone who has inspired me for quite a number of years. You guys have heard me talk about Dick Gregory. You heard me talk about Reginald Kitchen. You've heard me talk about, a lot of people. A lot of people. I was inspired by somebody at a very young age as I was doing my research for Martin Luther King years ago. Some project, I think it was in high school, junior high school, might even be in elementary school. I was inspired by the guy who came before Martin Luther King, before there was an actual civil rights movement. This guy, his name was Dr. Vernon Johns. Let me say it again. Dr. Vernon Johns, who was a minister. He's a religious man. And effectively, he basically went throughout the South and did pretty much what King did, actually laid the groundwork for a lot of what King did, but he didn't have a support system. He didn't have a support system. He didn't have, people who were marching with him. He didn't have that staff. He didn't have the times with him. Let's say that. He didn't have the times with him. He was a couple of years before King. I mean, basically, he was a minister. He would get a church, but because of his stances on race and equality, he would summarily be chased out of town. So every time you get an appointment out of church, you get chased out of town. Get an appointment out of church, get chased out of town. And what was inspiring was when he met King, he wasn't bitter. He saw in King, because King took over his church, because he was removed from office and King took over. But it was interesting that the people told King he's being removed, not because there was anything, I want to say, inappropriate with this man, but he was seeing a vision that King would later, at a young age, I take that back, that King would take on, and he had the support group. He had an apparatus. He had a civil rights movement. He had an SCLC. And, and the rest is history. But in reading about this guy, what was so inspirational was he led by the scope of his convictions. That's all he had. He led by the scope of his convictions. When I say the scope of his convictions, it meant that what was in the Bible was what he challenged white society about. Let me say, white, racist, Jim Crow society. And he stood on it. I think another person like that is, I don't know if anyone has ever read the David Walker Pills. The David Walker Pills is sort of like a manifest for the abolition movement back in the 1800s. David Walker was a free slave. He worked like on a merchant ship, if you will. I think I'm getting it right. But he definitely worked on the ship, and he would see the atrocities of racism and slavery back then. But now you're talking about racism. We're talking about the atrocities of slavery back then. And he wrote this manifesto called the David Walker Pills, which much the same as Dr. Vernon Johns challenged society, wait for it, challenged society about, well, you claim to be this morally upright people, but you're doing these atrocities. And this is really important because this is the 1800s. Black folk weren't reading, writing, that was outlawed. But here's a free slave, David Walker, who is informing the masses that you may get away with it because you think we can't read. He goes, but you're committing a moral crime. And he wrote this amazing treatise called the David Walker Pills. I would suggest everybody get a chance. If you get a chance, read the David Walker Pills. It is amazing in terms of scope, in terms of vision, in terms of just the compassion and the mercy of making that argument during that time. And what he did was interesting. Was he would sew copies of the David Walker Pills in old clothes that would be taken down south, and given to slaves. So, as myth would have it, that some of slaves would get these clothes and they would have his appeal in it, which I think is really, really, really tremendous. Boy, you guys quiet today. Reed, who inspires you? Reed's like, I'm cooking food. Um, but I think also, I also want to look at, while we have a couple minutes, I really want to look at what's the category for being inspired. Because we talk about inspirational, and I see people, oh, thank you so much, thank you so much. But what is the category for being inspired? Like, I have a rubric. It has to challenge a certain thought process, a certain emotion. That's A. B. It also has to have congruence. It has to have congruence. When I say congruence, I mean that it has to have a particular fit with my core values. Because sometimes a fit, brothers and sisters, doesn't mean that it fits perfectly. It can fit imperfectly. But at the same time, it can still have shape, form, and purpose. I think people forget that. Like sometimes, when we work, we want to be in a group of like-minded individuals. But sometimes for the creative, um, that's not the best scenario, because the opposing viewpoint has merit if we sit and listen to it. And sometimes the opposing viewpoint has a lot of merit we may have not even thought about, giving us a converse understanding of what we're seeing, what we're arguing about. And I think that's something that we've lost a little bit of nuance. Because I've been inspired by some people who I didn't necessarily care for initially, but in listening to them put together an argument, um, put together a discussion, framing what it is they believe and why. Sometimes it's like, hey, I get it. I get it. Like even some of these Trump people. Some of these Trump people. I've grown to be able to have that kind of discussion. Some of the people are inspiring. We don't necessarily agree on your politics, but I do give points, credit, and plausibility to some of the things you say in society if you can give me a balanced, fair, accurate argument. I tell you, and I'll share this with you. One of the people that really, really influenced me, inspired me, if you will, you heard me talk about it, is my Aunt Ruth. Of course, my mom and my dad, that they continue to inspire me. But my Aunt Ruth was interesting because my Aunt Ruth she never got married. She didn't have kids. She treated all of her nieces and nephews like they were her kids. In some regards, she was like a surrogate parent. What I thought was inspirational about her was that at a very young age, she began to tell me about what life would be in a changing paradigm of going from Jim Crow to integration. Because people think, you signed the Voting Rights Act, and it wasn't that way. There was a period you still had to have the Black Panther Party. You still had to have all these parties. Black people, we have to have all these parties, committees. They got a movie coming up about Fred Hampton. They have a movie about him. They have a movie coming out about the Panthers, I believe, another movie. But it's really interesting because she began to frame in an amazing way. She began to frame who the female heroes were in the civil rights movement and the Black Power liberation movements. And so she was the one who told me about Angela Davis. She was the one that told me about Asada Shakur. She was the one that explained to me things you would see on TV. They'd be like a blank, a blip on television. But she was like, let me tell you about what the transcendent nature of Black women was. And she did it with all kind of grace, and it was a very non-didactic type of discussion, because she said, I don't want you to feel like because you're a man, you're not a woman, that you can't appreciate these things. And because of that, I've always found my aunt to be inspiring. Uh, on the flip side, she was also inspiring because she taught me how to cuss. I learned all my profanity from my Aunt Ruth. And this is why she said, boy, you need to know how to. She said, you need to know how to cuss. I said, why? She said, because you're small. And I don't know if you know how to fight. And she taught me the nuance of language. Language. She said, language can change all kinds of things. And I said, really? And she said, especially curse words. So, shout outs to Aunt Ruth. Miss you. But I think it's a funny thing when you start really framing that a lot more, man. Like these days, it's interesting that people don't know how to frame their emotions until it gets to rage. Until it's like, I'm so frustrated and fed up. And my aunt was like, just cuss them out, you'll feel better. And I'm like, you know what? I do. I do feel better. I can feel my blood pressure go down. I feel calm. It's like woosah. That's what it feels like. So, that's people, like I said. And we got Brother Altaf. Oh, brother, I appreciate you, man. You always got a kind word for me, man. I appreciate that. For those that I know, Altaf, brother, Altaf is up in Toronto holding it down. He's one of the real ones in Toronto. So if you ever go to Toronto, I want you to go holler at him. Altaf, tell him I appreciate you seeing me as an inspiration. Who are your inspirations, though? I want to know some of them people that changed your life. Prior to Preacher Mars, when you were 10, 11, somebody made you think differently. I'm going to go to Sister Satana. Right outside of my first grade school teacher. She was in the cultural arts, which I thought was not a strength of mine. That's interesting. Satana, I know you a long time. Man. The way you carry yourself, I just thought sure that you are in the cultural arts from the jump. Like, you have that flow, you have that balance, you have that connectivity. It's interesting. I didn't think that. I'm gonna give a shout out to Altaf. I want to hear from you, man. I'm gonna give a shout out to this guy. Oh, okay. What's your grandfather Milford, and brother Malcolm X? Those are Sister Sultan. I appreciate you telling why. I want to know why. I'm gonna spend. I'm not gonna close the show till you tell me why. Tell me why your grandfather, because we don't know Brother Milford. Tell me one or two things about him. I'm going to tell you guys a quick story. Very quick story. If you like me as a comedian, if you see my shows and you appreciate what I do, and hey, it's smooth, whatever. I didn't get that way naturally. I had two people to help me. One was legendary tenor sax player. His name was Johnny Griffin. They called him the Little Giants out of Chicago. Tremendous dude. Played with the Loneliest Monk. One night we were at a club. Yeah, brother and sister, at a club. And I saw him and I was awestruck. And I was like, I framed myself as a jazz comedian back then. And because I played an instrument, didn't play it well, but I thought somehow I had a license to work jazz clubs. Trying to impress this guy. I don't know what I'm thinking. Went up on stage, killer set. I killed it. I mashed it. And something that said, well, I'm going to go get my props from Mr. Griffin since he's not giving it to me. And I went over to him and I say, hey, did you see my set? I said, yeah. He goes, I said, when you don't have anything to say, he goes, what? I said, any advice? I mean, I killed it. That's what I'm saying. He goes, yeah. I said, yeah. He said, buy me a drink. And I bought him a drink. He said, buy me another drink. I bought him another drink. And he said, that's the worst sounding comedy I ever heard. He said, your voice is like fingernails on a chalkboard. And I was hurt. And he was like, because you're not patient. He said, people come to listen, not to the words, but they come to listen to your investment and them listening. He said, that's what music is about. And he taught me this thing called vocalese. That's Johnny Griffin. And it has been a boon to my career. Uh, I never thought I'd be doing comedy into my 50s. But because of that man and what he taught me, amazing. Now the other guy, this guy in Milwaukee, his name was Melvin Ryan. If you ever heard me tell the Melvin Ryan story, you're going to hear it one more time. Melvin Ryan played organ for great luminaries like Wes Montgomery. Okay? He played for Wes Montgomery. And he was an amazing organist. Always had this mean disposition towards me, like me. His wife was an angel. Her name was Ida Cola. But whenever Melvin would see me, it was never like a good interaction. I would say things like, hey, Mr. Mel, hey, Mr. Ron, how are you? And he said, why don't you go jump in front of a bus? I'm like, damn. And that's the way it carried for my whole college career. Melvin Ryan was not nice to me. You know, if I got this out of Melvin, that was a good conversation. So that was the way it was, man. But somehow I still got to work with his band and around town, if you will, because Melvin carried a lot of weight. So my senior year, I graduated, and he walked into the dressing room. Melvin Ryan gave me an envelope. Now, keep in mind, since 17 up to 21, I've been scared of this dude. He gave me an envelope. It was so bad that everybody in the dressing room left because they thought if I opened it, it was going to explode. That's what they were thinking. And I opened it, and it had a card in it. It had $25 in it, and had the sweetest message. I thought his wife, Ida Cola, written it. It was him. He was congratulating me on graduating, and he told me the reasons why he was so hard on me. He said, I really wanted you to quit because I was worried that if you got intoxicated by this business, you wouldn't graduate. And he said it happened to people in his family. It happened to close members in his family. He says, you have potential, but you needed that paper. And he's not here anymore, but I respect that. I really, really respect that. So Melvin, thank you. So Sister Sultana has gotten back to us. And she said, my grandfather will say the white man is still in the lead, but not long. Oh, I like that one. I like that one. Sister, we need to put that one out. You need to put that on the political ad. We need that one. The white man is still in the lead, but not long. I like that. Altaf has come back to us, brothers and sisters. Grade 4 teacher, Miss McGee, gave me my first bad grade in art. Made me realize I had to put in the work. Oh, I had that habit too. That's another story. My 6th grade teacher, Miss Jones. Yeah, she broke my face on that one. Yeah. You know, you ever notice, man, when you get a bad grade, it's inspirational. I never knew how inspirational an F could be till it's like, wait a minute. Because your logic, when you get an F, your logic does jump in. You're thinking, you know, what, I spent 7 hours on this paper stressing to get an F. I could have not done anything, got the same grade. You know what I'm saying? That's the way it felt. That's the way it felt. So listen, we're going to wrap up. I'm going to put an ad on, everybody. I want you to remember today 2 things. The powers that be have tried to shortchange us again. So please, if you can, check with your neighbors, check with your family, make sure that people fill out the census. I was reading something today that if the census is not corrected, we could lose over $1 trillion in resources in the next 10 years. I mean, resources that are desperately needed for our schools, our communities, job advancement, the economy. You know, that money is not going to come to places where it needs to, so you know where it's going to go. So please make sure that people are filling out the census. Make sure that you filled out your census. Tomorrow is going to be too late. The census is supposed to go to the 30th. They're cutting it off today, 15 days earlier. So it tells you where we are in life right now. So make sure that you fill out the census. And everybody is out there early voting. I'll give another shout out to people in Georgia that stood online for 11 to 14 hours. God bless you. You are literally living the legacy of Dr. Vernon Johns, except he couldn't vote. But you are making it up for him. You make sure you continue to vote. All right, everybody. We're going to hit this little ad, and I'm going to have some closing words, if you will, if you guys don't mind. Just some closing words, and I'll be right back. Inshallah.
Well, I know who I'm going to vote president. That's great. How about everyone else? Don't know much about them. Probably will leave them blank or pick random people. Don't do that. Vote the ticket. Down ballot. Why? What does it matter? Start a wave. Wash out 2020 and start with a fresh 2021. Wash out 2020? Sounds good to me. I'll vote down ballot. Yeah, use your power so I can use mine when I turn 18. Vote the ticket. Vote down ballot.
All right, everybody, we're back. Thank you so much. Just a short note, man. Make sure you're voting down ballot. Altaf, if you have friends and relatives in the United States, make sure they vote down ballot. That's what we're trying to do. Other than that, man, I mean, I want to get some shout outs. I want to give a shout out to Sister Satana's teacher who turned her on to cultural arts. Sister Satana Ali. I want to make sure we give big blessings and du'as for Grandfather Milford and, of course, Brother Malcolm X. Altaf, we can't forget Miss McGee. Make sure you give some du'as for Miss McGee and her family. If she's not here anymore, for her family, you know, because it's an incredible sacrifice to actually teach, because it takes out a lot away from family time. So I'm gonna get out of here. You guys have been tremendous as always, and you know, think a little bit more. You know, if you can, think a little bit more about you know, who inspires you, why they inspire you, and once you do that, it's like, you know what, feel inspired. I always say feel inspired and then feel grateful. So do those things. I'll see you guys tomorrow, inshallah, if it's Allah's will. Take care. Preacher Mars Shout Out Show. Have an excellent Thursday.
Hey everybody, this is your brother Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your Shout Out Show experience. We'll be back with the next show, the next Shout Out Show. Simple ask before you go, please help your brother out. Click that subscribe button, click that notify button, and I'll see you again on this side of the microphone. You probably wonder what that smell is. That's me. I smell good. And the reason I smell good is because I use oils from Tarifa Tar. So I'm not saying you can't smell good. I'm not even saying you stink. I'm saying you have the opportunity to smell exquisite. Check out tarifatar.com for some of the best oils and scents in town.